All right, welcome everybody. We'll go ahead and call us to order. It is 6:05, May 13th, for our regular meeting. Let's start with roll call. Heidi? Here. Merle? Here. Jenny? Here. Kelsey? Here. Crystal? Here. And Cher's here. So we can have a full complement, and if you guys would all join me in flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Like to welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's a pretty big crowd for a Monday night, but it's beautiful outside, so I appreciate you guys. Yeah. If everybody's had a chance to look over the agenda, I would accept a motion to go forward with it as presented.
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We will continue as presented. Thank you. Public comments. I'm told that we did not have any up to this point. So going once, going twice. We will move along. Item number 3, board communication. So we just completed Teacher Appreciation Week. I think Bill has a couple of slides. I would like to read in a resolution.
Let's see if Diane's been working on driving this piece. So we'll let you go ahead.
Alrighty. Whereas teachers mold future citizens through guidance and education. Whereas teachers encounter students of widely very differing backgrounds. And whereas our country's future depends upon providing quality education to all students. And whereas teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling, coaching students, and performing community service. And whereas our community recognizes and supports its teachers in educating the children of this community. Now therefore, be it resolved that the North Marion School Board of Directors proclaims May 6th through the 10th, 2024 to be Teacher Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the North Marion School Board of Directors strongly encourages all members of our community to join us with personally expressing appreciation to our teachers for their dedication and their devotion to their work.
I didn't know if any other board members, I did have a little bit of a highlight reel put together. We've been perfecting our get it on the full screen, so just try to get just a nice variety of, you know, some of the awesome teachers and staff and all the places, you know, that their work comes through. And I'm thinking about these thank yous in these slides, that it's actually our students as well, who have really shown their appreciation for their teachers and staff throughout the course of the week. I did get to see an outstanding doubles match led by Tully Wagner,
That
two
is-
young gentlemen.
That's quite cool.
Had a fantastic video. Finally, down in the right-hand corner where, Kelly's FBLA kids and all the great success going, off to nationals, the super hard work at our, professional development and curriculum days that we've had up above. Go ahead, Diane. You've seen these in many different places, whether developing curriculum, writing grants for the district, putting on amazing music programs. Sherry, with remember the second grade flag ceremony over there at the primary school. Go ahead, Diane. just kind of nice to see all the places. Where else would Tricia Stoddard be except out, you know, in the greenhouse? Helping kids learn how to appreciate the animals and the farm. Recent kinder roundup, is a very proud little kindergarten student showing off her new shirt. Go ahead, Diane. Counselors in all of our buildings recently, some of our students having a chance to participate in the counselor's decision day and think a little bit about where to after high school. I know our counselors take a lot of pride in K-12 and getting kids to that benchmark. Covered up the great cake with the Zoom. And did that get me to the end, Diane? Again, some of those other places, kind of rarely visited, the discus, you know, the discus ring, if you've ever been out there, you always see some of our members out there, supporting kids. Our robotics competitions, they're often, you know, off somewhere, maybe not, always seen, but, always doing a great job of supporting our kids. And some of our staff you've seen before at one of our professional learning sessions, so, I think that might have been it. Except for the conclusion slide. But just again, great thanks to our teachers and staff for really living our vision and moving the mission forward. So can't thank it enough.
Yeah, I would just open it up. Does anybody have anything they
Yeah,
wanted to say? Go ahead.
I'll start us off. So I just want to thank our teachers for the encouragement, love, and kindness that they show the variety of students. Being a mother with 4 students who were polar opposites of each other, I can appreciate that each one of them has had an opportunity to have connection with each teacher. And I really appreciate the energy and effort to put forth on that, to make a connection with all different types of students. And I just want to say my heartfelt thank you for just making our culture here a warm and friendly one. It really shows.
I don't think I could even follow that. That was beautifully said. Yeah.
Our heart and soul. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, teachers. I just a little aside, believe it or not, my class will have their 50th class reunion. And something I've had the absolute joy of doing is calling the teacher from our school, and that was the teachers in our class and inviting them to our reunion. It just continues to take me back to how much I personally have appreciated benefiting from the work of teachers. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add other than I've had 4 kids go through North Marion and had a time when there was 1 in each building. But I definitely appreciate the countless hours, all of the work that goes unseen, unheard, but that goes into each and every student, and really do appreciate that. My youngest is due to be out of here in a couple of weeks. Yet to attest to, but there isn't anything, I mean, that bond with the teacher is probably one of the strongest that I could ask any of my kids. You know, what did you get for Christmas when you were a 6th grader? They don't remember. Who'd you have for a 6th grade teacher? They all remember. Who'd you have for a 1st grade teacher? I mean, those are really impactful relationships. So it is very much appreciated. All right, moving along. Also wanted to acknowledge that May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Culture Month. I probably won't read through all that since we have a lot to cover tonight, but we just want to make note of that. I know to our newest board members, Summer Board Conference, save the date, is August 9th through the 11th. You'll probably want to be chatting with Diane if you're wanting to attend. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to onboard, up speed. There's a lot of information exchange. It happens at Salem.
Is it in Salem this year?
Yeah, it's in Salem again this year, so, anyway, we will, coordinate with Diane, but just please save that date. Our high schoolers have a ASB report.
Thank you, yes.
Go ahead and join us.
Yeah, Kenley was not able to be here.
Yes,
So
here's the
we'll start
fill-in.
with me.
Okay, we'll start off with the ASB update and adding on to the teacher appreciation. We just finished up our little way of appreciating them all. We had a bunch of lovely donations that enabled us to every day kind of give her a coffee or a flower, or have a breakfast, or a thank you card signed by ASB. And yeah, we really do appreciate them all, and we tried our best to make that very clear over the week. We've also hosted our elections, next year's like representatives in the office holders, and that went really well. We have the future VP lined up, who will be joining me next year. And we have all the class presidents and VPs lined up. It should be a very fun year. And we also finished off our annual first responders dinner.
Yeah, for Key Club has helped out with the parking at the Wooden Shoe Tulip Festival for their closing weekend, as well as served breakfast at the mayor's breakfast on May 2nd.
And the FBLA has quite a long one, but it's all very deserved. They have 2 more visits with the Big Brother Big Sister program over the primary school before they wrap up the year. And they're also celebrating the award of the Gold Champion Chapter Award, which is given to them at state. And Miss, I would like to give a special congrats to all the year's officers who worked towards that award, which includes Jack Kiesel, Ian McElvain, Jennifer Miranda, Matea Kimber, and Anna Guzman, as well as Abby Aiken. And they also have 6 competitors heading out to nationals this year, making it their largest group ever. Making it to nationals is a huge achievement, and it grants the students a rare opportunity to really learn and immerse themselves in the world of business, leadership, teamwork, and much more. And all of those aforementioned officers qualified for state this year, or national, sorry, which is really cool. And they do have a GoFundMe set up and linked to their Instagram account. And they're asking for any donations possible that would all go towards the booking hotel rooms, booking the flights, all the catering and stuff. But yeah, they have really high hopes, and they're really hoping to secure a trophy for North Marion there. Should be really fun.
Yeah, FFA, they have their end of the year award banquet on May 17th and wrapped up their plant sale in the greenhouse on Friday and Saturday.
Metro had a few concessions in partnership with the junior class, and all the money went to the prom, which we are currently planning. Metro's brand new scholarship will close on May 6th, and there's a first, second, and third place, all ranging from $500 to $200. And the winner for those will be announced at the senior awards. They will also continue to do scholarship for years to come, which is really neat. And they also have one last migrant parent meeting event where members will volunteer to run games. The last meeting is a party. So that should be fun.
NHS is continuing to grow and promote its homework help lab, as well as plan its induction ceremony for the new members on May 14th at 6 p.m.
And Skills USA had yet another state championship in robotics, medical terminology, speaking competitions, culinary arts, and baking pastry. And while no one podium, they did have 3 members who ribboned and made the top 6, which is really cool because they were all first-time competitors. So to get that far was really cool for them.
Robotics is on a pause until May 20th, when they start meeting for next year's competition.
Drama Club performed a skit at May Day, which was a blast, and they're hoping to fundraise for a trip for the little end of year celebration.
Prom is coming up fast on May 18th at Stafford's venue, from 7:30 to 10:30. Tickets, or 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. Tickets are available, today. Well, they were available for $40. And, yeah, we're doing great.
And then finally, as I'm sure you all know, May Day finished up their performance last week, and it was great fun. And that's all for high school for now.
Such a fun list. You guys have been so busy.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Any questions?
Good job.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
All right, next we have UNME leadership. I see Jen and Matt up there, so welcome. Thanks for doing it.
Course, this was so beautiful outside, this one is hot. It's like a little bit sad that it's May and ours is hot, but shouldn't complain too much. Jana Giles, the president.
Matt Dempsey, vice president, and I'm at the middle school as well.
IS.
third grade. So I'll start by saying we have a scholarship that will be given to a high school student. We only had one apply for our scholarship unfortunately, but because of that, they get both scholarships. So they're gonna get more money for it next year. Haven't told them yet. They'll find out at scholarship night. So if you applied, you got it. May Day, we at the IS got to go and watch the high school at May Day. I don't know if you guys got to go. It was incredible. Sarah Bailey worked really hard to get that all worked out with the high school students, also worked hard. And it was really fun. Loved being back. Haven't been back at that performance the whole day since COVID. So it was fun for us to be able to go in and see that. And then we also are in state testing season. So things are going well. It's state testing, so kids are a little bit feeling it, is how I would express that. But yeah, it's a good time for all of us to be together, doing the same things, talking about next year, kind of reflecting on how things are going.
Yeah, if you don't know, there's an ELA test, a math test for 8th grade. There's also a science test. They also have to take that at junior year, but there's also the ELPA test. And we've seen an increase in passing on the ELPA test. And that's for speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So it's quite a bit more intensive, and we've had quite a few students pass it, which is
And ELPA stands for?
English Language Proficiency Assessment.
I knew that one. Yeah, nice job.
Also, we have some field trips coming up. 5th grade's going to the zoo, which is always a fun time. My daughter's favorite is the naked Mornats, so I hope they get to squirm about those. 3rd grade's going to Silver Falls, and then 7th grade is also going to Silver Falls as well. And then just a big thank you to parents for helping out with 8th grade promotion, putting together desserts, and also the 8th grade field trip. That's a lot to tackle, and so we've had a lot of help and support with that, so thank you, parents.
And then at the intermediate school, there were high school students that came over and took pictures, like candid shots of our students, and they're printed up on canvas and in the hallways, and we've got nothing but just positive feedback. The kids are loving seeing themselves in the hallway. So we're hoping for more, because they're very cute. Also, our hallways, if you haven't seen, 3rd grade did some key pairing inspired like body cutouts. It's very colorful, it's very pretty. So if you haven't seen, I recommend just walking down the 3rd grade hall. And then a huge thank you to the classified staff for everything they did for us teachers during Appreciation Week. We had amazing food, like all week. I know everybody worked really hard. We got pies from the central office. I think that counts from you guys too. We got cake, we got just so much good stuff. We really did feel appreciated, so thank you. And then the union also for Teacher Appreciation, we got little keychains of measured tapes with our logo on it. So we sent those out to our members as well. And then the last thing is, we have not heard, any teachers have not heard back from the superintendent hiring committee. I know, like, I personally requested, like, I filled out the form and everything, but I wasn't sure when we would hear if we get to share our voice in that process. So that's the last question I have. Thing to promote. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, we are dealing with that tonight. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
and there was a process we went through. In fact, she'll have an update on that here in just a few minutes about kind of where
I
that's
have a
going. So,
question for you.
Yes.
Did they weigh you in and out? To appreciate it.
It's best to not, one of my colleagues. We always joke that like during Teacher Appreciation Week is the week that we don't worry, like that's the week we can
Don't
cheat,
measure.
you know, it's just
Nothing counts.
nothing.
Free
counts.
Days like that, do that.
Yeah, it was a whole.
Not if Grace is watching.
Anything else for us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. All right, we have 2 field trips to acknowledge. One is overnight for band and choir at Rockaway Beach, May 22nd, 23rd, and the other is for outdoor school. Is that right? For September 23rd through the 27th. That one's up otherwise. Yep. But I'm getting a head nod, so that must be accurate, so. We don't actually vote on those, but acknowledge those as overnight since they're in state, so. Next up is superintendent search update. I will let Crystal give you a couple of words on that, so.
So we have been in contact with our consulting group and they have closed the community and teacher and administration, the big survey that went out to everyone. We want to thank everybody for participating. They said we had a huge turnout for a district our size, so we were thrilled. We did receive those survey results, I think, over the weekend it was finalized. I remember reading it. And then we'll be addressing that in a work session this evening. And they're bringing forth, recommendations and suggestions that the board will look at and approve to move forward. So just keep everybody updated.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, moving along, item number 4, consent agenda. Not sure everybody's had a chance to look at those, but if you have, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. That was the second with Jenny. Diane, I don't know if you have any notes, but. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion carries. All right, next up is district operations report, and we have Linda first up.
I don't know if there's any questions on the general fund or other fund revenue expense summaries, but you did notice that in May, we did get in late April, but we got more state school fund updates and they were all negative, so we didn't bode well. We lost almost $600,000 in our funding, so that was a bit of a surprise to us, but we will be able to present a balanced budget on Monday with some reductions in what we thought we could have. Any questions on that?
I had asked for an explanation on the footnote. Shift of general fund inflates 100s to 300s. I don't know what that means.
That is, in order to balance, we shifted some of our expenses that were in the general fund over to the ESSER fund to start to close that out. And that saved us some money in the general.
So
fund.
that's just account numbers.
So
that
when you
are
look at the
referenced
general
there.
fund summary for general fund, you'll notice that if you go month by month in the 100s and 200s, which is salaries, associated payroll costs and purchase services, they went down that month. And it's because we shifted costs in April to ESSER. So then they'll go back up to what the normal is in May and then triple in June. Okay.
I can't actually.
We'll just call if you have questions. Yes. And then the next is I need to change some budget appropriations and I don't have the right piece of paper, so Diane has it up. So basically you had a memo in your information. We need to transfer about $300,000 and shift general fund, because of this shift of general fund money to ESSER, then we're overspending our 200 special revenue funds in support services. So we need to shift 300,000 from instructional to support in the 200 funds in order to balance. And then we also need to shift $2,000 in the construction, in the capital projects funds, because our HVAC, I couldn't split the invoice enough to make it right. So I just said, I'm just gonna ask. I'm asking anyway. We're getting. So I hope you would entertain this resolution and someone could read it and approve it.
I'll make a motion that, oh, just a minute, sorry, I clicked on it, so I don't have my resolution number anymore. I'll make a motion that we accept and approve resolution number 5132024 to amend appropriations at the North Marion School District as presented by Linda Murray, our financial business manager. Sorry, I've been up a long time. Back me up here.
Yeah, I second that.
I have a motion, a second, is there discussion?
Was that okay, or do you want the actual wording you have?
Oh, do you have different wording that you want?
Was it different, Heidi? I can't see.
Well, it
I
gives,
said the resolution number, but
And
would
that
you
might
rather want that?
I think the resolution number should be.
That works.
right, be it resolved, but it's
Yeah.
fine, I think it's fine.
It's referenced, I guess.
Diane, do you have a preference? No?
No, I
think
we're good.
Any other discussion?
Oh, no, I didn't see it in there either.
All right, let's take a vote on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on that. Next up, we have our 2022 Fed report card. Carol.
All right. Diane, can you actually pull up the report card too? It's linked at the bottom of the memo. Thank you. All right, so this year's SPED report card profile just came out about a week ago. So this is again for last year, 22-23. And I shared a couple highlights with everybody in my memo. Just on this first page, parent survey results went up a little bit. We talked about that last year. Those are follow-up surveys for parents to see kind of where kids are out at after graduation. And so we always like to get that number high, but I want to go to the next page because we have a really big celebration on the next scroll up. That graduation rate, 85%, is above the state average. Last year it was that really scary number that I don't want to repeat. That was the lowest that we've ever been. I did some research too, went back multiple years, and that number had been in the high 60s, 70s before. So this is one of our highest graduation rates. So that's pretty amazing. That's where we want it to be or higher than that. So that's our target moving forward. And then our dropout rate is below the state average also. And so, continuing to make all those connections with students, and then supporting students to graduate and earn their diplomas. And then the bottom is really those follow-up interviews about what are students doing a year after graduation. And then a couple other highlights just on the left side, there is no significant disproportionality. So we have to report every year, making sure that we are identifying students equitably and using all of our processes and all the procedures and all those things. And so we always like to have that there. And then a few other things on the last slide. Two more things, sorry. Last slide is just the very bottom around the gap in proficiency between students experiencing disability and not. And so the 4th and 8th grade language arts percentages jumped quite a bit, and then 4th grade math jumped quite a bit too. So we are closing that gap in achievement as well. And then just to note on the back to the first page, we're working on those students in general education classes, more opportunities for participation with students without experiencing disability. So that's kind of one of our focuses for the next few years too, is to continue to work on inclusion and supporting students in all environments. So questions for me?
Just thank you for all the amazing leadership work in this area.
Yeah.
And it obviously shows.
Yeah, I was gonna say those would.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Really.
So exciting stuff,
Good.
amazing staff, amazing students and families.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. All right, next up is 5C, and we have Dr. Lewis.
Let Diane bring up my presentation, in which I'll continue to go with, the mentors I've had before who said never never miss an opportunity to share your mission and vision, so, just to stay consistent with things. North Marion learning together to cultivate lifelong growth, and, just a couple of pictures from last week, actually last Thursday and Friday, but you know, Stacy on the bus, I really, when I think about that notion of what North Marion, what North Marion, you know, meant to the strategic planning committee, they were really talking about North Marion, us, North Marion, this region, that we live in, and all the, small communities. And that picture was taken at the end of a bus ride. Stacy took her staff on, Friday afternoon, and kidnapped me along with them to actually go and visit the district. We're really almost from boundary to boundary, and to really have that sense of, to get that sense of who we are and where we are and where our kids come from and where our families come from. So it was I thought it was a, you know, a nice one to lead the mission notion with, along with, you know, that beginning that next group of graduates in kindergarten at the kinder roundup the other night. When they were so darn excited about that. I wanted to say, you know, it's always interesting, we always make assumptions. And there were, literally, because, you know, our staff come from all around the region. There was a notion that, oh, that's what a hop field looks like. That's gonna be, that was actually something. And it's just, I'm just saying that because there are things, you know what I mean, that we assume that we shouldn't assume, you know, in terms of, you know, kind of helping to understand who we are and where we're from, and, you know, those things that, bring us together. So that vision around, communities together, and, a couple of weeks ago, went to a really nice event that our leadership class put on to celebrate our first responders around the region, you know, from all of our birds, even including Woodburn. Woodburn got invited into, you know, into this group too, but just a really nice event that folks were really proud of. I did have to say, you know, you might give us a heads up when you're gonna have 5 fire trucks parked in front of the, you know, the high school. So, you know, we don't panic about some of those. Also had a really nice evening with you board and our parent night for our English learners and migrant families. And I think at the end of that evening, everyone was just feeling really good about building that community and those relationships and the opportunities for families to interact with the board. So very well done, and well done by our staff members who organized that and put that together as well. Okay. You know, you have to love the first grade music program. So my favorite part, I think, as we start to get to the first grade and ultimately the kinder program, is they have to take a moment at the beginning for all the kids to find their parents and wave and family and those types of things before they can move forward with the program. So, again, another outstanding job, and you know, I'm always so impressed by the attendance at those events. You know, it's a real community event, community builder. Okay, Diane. And as Steve said, another great opportunity for so many of our community members to participate in the May Day tradition. And, you know, for the end to have a reason to celebrate at the end of those at the end of those weeks, but again, just a beautiful and fantastic event. And I understand they had some special expertise, you know, in the technical end, this year that, you know, maybe someone, you know, near and dear to us, was helping out with that, and that's much appreciated.
Very much appreciated.
And, you know, once again, those fire trucks in front of the building, pretty soon, you know, it's gonna be like crying wolf. But it's really nice for, you know, for our, emergency responders and local police and fire to come out, because the kinders love them. They spend half the night in the police cars and the fire trucks and really enjoying that. Chief Reese is kind of in the background of that when he was out here, tonight too, and then, you know, just the teachers and the kids and wonderful interactions on that in the night. Those are some really darn excited kids and really excited parents too, about getting started with school. And seventh inning stretch, I guess. I don't think she even paid attention.
That one. I can't live with that one on my list. I'm just kidding. Long term, 30 years, yeah.
It's nice to see folks out and enjoying our kids in action. I did want to, I know there's been some questions about, you know, kind of where do we go with strategic planning at this point, and I did want to just kind of talk a little bit about this notion of strategic planning forward, and moving forward. And what I've got our goals and performance indicators and measures that were identified around those goals. And we're in year 2 of working through the strategic plan. And many of our indicators and measures have been completed. You know, they are, you know, very many of them are completed at this point. And it is very important right now that we take some time to review. The goals are very solid. Your mission and vision, very solid. Your core values are there, and the goals are there, designed to take us through next year. But we need to relook at the performance indicators and the measures, you know, that will take us through the next year, because those parts do need to be adjusted and aligned with the work that we're doing right now and the plans that we have going forward right now. So in essence, just put those examples. So here's the first goal again, performance indicators and measures. I'll have that the red, yellow, and green, you know, document next month when we have all that put together. But we have, you know, again, goal 1, and go ahead, Diane. And goal 2, as I was putting this together, I was just kind of going, gosh, we really were wearing masks a couple of years ago when we were doing this work. And again, that core planning team and some of the students involved. And then goal 3, again, formatted the same way. We're going to we'll take a run at those performance indicators and measures with our, you know, with our central office team, and then we'll take it to our principals at our next principal meeting and have them look at that. Now that we're starting to gather some data, so we have some data that we can start to make those decisions around and adjust those measures with. And then to the extent possible, principals to work with their instructional leadership teams again and take a look and get that kind of feedback about re-upping or thinking about what the performance indicators would be through the next year. So that's the plan for strategic planning moving forward. Another thing I wanted to, because it's come up and it continues to evolve, but go ahead, Diane. Cool. 3. Go ahead, one more. Another thing that we're starting to think a lot about right now, as the students, or as Jenna and I was saying, we're in the middle of state assessment right now. So it is that season and we're very involved in that right now. Certain results are starting to trickle in for some of our assessments. You know, and it's time for us to start to think about what lenses we're going to use as we look at those assessments. And one of the things that I know, you know, is really high on my radar, and I know it is for Desiree and Cheryl and Irma, others who are looking at, you know, how our programs are working, is this notion of assessment literacy, you know, and really making time to understand what any assessment might be able to tell us and what it might not be able to tell us. and make sure that, we, you know, based on what question we're trying to ask or answer with the data, you know, that we look through the right lens. And so I was thinking about this and just put together a little, this may not be, go ahead, Diane. Oops, next one maybe. It's kind of small, maybe you have it on your screen, but there are some variables that we have to take into account anytime we're looking at a student's assessment result. Any assessment a student takes is really high stakes for that student. It's really high stakes for that student, because it influences what our next moves are for that student. It influences whether they pass a class, it influences where they're placed, it influences the program they're placed in. Those are really high stakes decisions to make around students. So it's really important that we understand, you know, the right lens to look through to answer the question. One of the things that we're looking at as our results are coming in are what some of the variables are. So in essence, let's just say that we've got these students K through 12 this year. Here's something to know about these particular groups at each grade level. Their current regular attendance. So that's important. Because if you're trying to use an assessment result to evaluate a program or, you know, a teaching strategy or something like that, whether something's working, it needs to be based on students having the opportunity to learn, you know, before you gave them the assessment. If you look at right now, our kindergarten regular attenders are at 53%. And theoretically, you know, in essence, you could have a kindergartner who's maybe missed half the year in terms of attendance. And how you look at the assessment result, you know, and what question you're trying to ask, well, it matters if they were there or not and had an chance or opportunity to learn for that instruction. And the same goes for, you know, for others. Now, these are the class or these are the grade level attendance numbers. But it would be important to know that for any individual student too. Here's a student, here's an assessment result. How much were they there? And how much opportunity to learn did they have that result was based on?
And what's the percentage for current regular attenders? Like, how much school do they have to attend to be able to hit that benchmark?
90%.
90%.
The one thing that's not on this chart, there's one thing I will say that you've heard me kind of whine about in terms of our result is participation in the past. But our participation rates are getting up to where they're pretty much on par and are good enough and strong enough to be able to have some validity about who actually took the test and who didn't in that regard. The other thing that we've talked about in some ways before, but we're talking a little bit now, is this notion of if we figure, and this is not scientific, but sort of, because we've lived it, 1920, 2021, and 21-22. Those 3 years, we've sort of unscientifically said, those are really high impact COVID years. 1920, we sent everybody home. 2021 was CDL, and 21-22 was the year we all came back, all masked and such. And so if those were really highly impacted by COVID, what percentage of a student's schooling in North Marion was impacted by COVID? And if we count PCARE, you know, and then like K1, 2, in essence, if kids that finished 3rd grade, the 5th year here, well, 3 of those years were high impact years. So that's what this number represents. In essence, said our 3rd graders had 60% of their schooling highly impacted by COVID. Does that make a little bit of sense? So they had those 3 years, whereas if you got it down to, you know, kids who are juniors taking the assessment this year, not saying they weren't impacted, by COVID, but they had more years of schooling, you know, that weren't impacted by COVID. So it's just another lens to put on it, another way to think about it, but especially when we're looking at a third and fourth graders. The other thing to know about any particular group of students is whether programmatically, what would be expected of them programmatically. We have emerging bilingual students who are learning English as their second language. So if you're giving a test in English and assessing English, it's actually, we know that gap closes over time. You wouldn't have a beginning English language learner and expect them to be achieving as the same as an English speaking student. So we have to look at where they are if there's an English learner and what their trajectory would be. We're looking hard at that right now because we want them to be moving, at the rate towards English proficiency that they should be. But these are just some numbers, and so, for instance, 41% of our third graders right now are emerging bilingual students, English learners. So that's important to know when you're looking at, just how our third graders on the state assessment. The other thing that we were trying to think about a little bit were the impacts of transition. And we know that transitions are hard, they're challenging in schools. Every time we have to make a transition, we know if we don't do some extra work to make that transition as strong as possible, we lose a little ground. And that's been known that's where all the 9th grade on track and all of those types of things, that research came from. So we know that like kindergarten's an automatic transition, so that's just a given because children are coming to school, from home in essence. It's a big transition for them, and that's kind of evolved into K1 now. We've got a little bit of an extra transition in the school district because we have a K2 school and a 3-5 school. So we have an extra opportunity to lose ground if we don't pay attention to that transition really carefully. And so our third graders are kind of doubly impacted because they had the 2nd to 3rd grade transition and they didn't get kindergarten. They were home during kindergarten. So that's why it's important for us to think of what maybe have been the effects of transitions, on these students in terms of how they move along. And again, the left transitions are better in school. Those are some of the reasons that K-8 schools came into being and some of those types of things. But it used to be only middle schools had the short time with kids when you're trying to get to know them, and they only have 3 years. And the average elementary school has 6 years, with their kids and maybe 7. And high school at least has 4. So we've got some schools, K2 and 3-5, that don't have as much time as a school community, to really get to know their kids, and thus, the transition matters. So those are just things we're thinking about, and in essence, kind of say these are things that are important to understand if you depend on what question you're trying to ask, to be able to look at the right lenses, whether it's an individual student or whether it's a whole, like a grade level or something like that as well. The next, oops, I guess maybe it has to go backwards now. I got one out of place there. Go backwards then. Yeah, oh, that was it. Yeah. Right there. So these are some things we're thinking about too. All of our, these are some results. It's just a clip. These are results from our English language proficiency assessment. And that happens in 4 domains, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So we can see how students are doing in each one of those 4 areas. And so one of the things that we were starting to take a look at, thanks to Des and Irma digging into some data, was we kind of said, well, what's reading look like? in terms of the ALPA. And so what we can what we can see. And these are third grade results. We can see how long the student has been, an English learner receiving services as an English learner over their years identified. There is an on-track, to proficiency measure, that we're able to look at in that, and most of our principals actually have on-track goals around, the ELBA in their goals. You might remember that in their big goal piece. So we can see, we can then also see the second grade scores and the third grade scores just in that one domain. And we're starting to take a look at that to see if that's a place where we can get some good solid information about how kids are progressing. And in reading, but we'll eventually be able to do that in writing and speaking and listening as well. And these are where we want to see 4s and 5s are proficient, so we want to keep seeing these numbers move into the 4s and 5s as students are moving along. And I think Desiree is on. One of the things that we have noted this year is that I believe across the district, the number is 37 kids have been identified proficient this year and will exit from the program. That's compared to 28 last year. And is, considerable for the numbers that we've had in the past. Deanne Berman, I think at the high school, 8 students have exited, and I think the most they'd ever had before was 2. And there were 12 at the middle school. I think it's 15 at the intermediate school. And so we're really seeing some improvements in those areas. But this is just saying, this is another kind of slice of the data that we get that comes from a standardized assessment that can actually give us a little deeper look, at where individual students are and or how programs are working and affecting those students. Most of those students are the focal students identified in our longitudinal growth targets, in our plan. So there's plenty more to come. None of these are quite finished yet, but they're the kinds of things we're thinking about and looking at as far as our data, and also the kinds of things that help guide our decisions and our next moves, in our strategic planning and in our programs and instruction as well. And I think that might get me to the end. But everyone's dreaming of. All right, thank you, Diane. So anyway, hopefully a little flavor of things to come in terms of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Any questions for? I think we're kind of asking along the way, but. What's that?
I think that's second, that's in this. Number 3, is that what you're looking at, or board act?
I'm looking at number 3.
We're ready. No, we're number 6. That,
Okay.
that shouldn't have been.
Yeah,
Okay.
spring.
All right, so number 6 is board action. We have a FBLA National Leadership Conference in Orlando on June 27th through July 3rd. Do you want to provide any info on it?
We like to go.
But they need a vote from us. So
Oh,
we
okay.
need to.
Big honor.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the extended out-of-state field trip request for the FBLA National Leadership Conference in Orlando, Florida, June 27th through July 3rd, 2024, and we are thrilled.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is there usually a little more information on these extendeds? As to who's going, and how many, and funding and so on?
On the application there is,
Yeah.
they have to answer some questions about the trip and financials and, the number of students that are going to that.
And the parents are involved.
Was usually available to us before. we-
Yeah. Normally we've seen that form with a link.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Yeah, and you're taking how many? They said, but
Six, I think.
six, that's a good number.
Yeah.
Good number.
They seem advertising on it.
Yeah.
They're advertising a lot. How much do they need for the Turner Center?
I don't know the bottom line, they're consistently fundraising, and so they're just keep it coming.
All right, moving on to 6B math curriculum, materials adoption for K through 2. Is Desiree gonna do that?
This is going to be doing that virtually.
Virtually.
Hi, everybody. I am really sorry that I can't be there. I am not feeling well, and it's good to be able to mute myself during coughing fits. So I appreciate the indulgence. So we'll start with the math because we have a lot to go through today. I first want to just kind of give a little background. Last year when we did our math adoption, we did postpone adopting for the primary school in order to allow them to have an opportunity to really use last year to get ready and launch that ELA curriculum. So we appreciated the ability to take our time with our adoption and move it to this year. Our team was primarily Jamie Bohal, Darla Boswell, and Brianna Lewis, who have been kind of a steadfast team through all of our adoption processes, and we really appreciate the work that they've been doing with us. They looked at 2 different curriculums and have landed on the Bridges Mathematics program, which is an independent adoption. Bridges was still in the process of finalizing their materials, and so didn't go in for formal state approval, but we know that this program is well aligned with the state rubrics and the work that we're doing in the district. We're really excited for the materials they selected. It's been amazing this year working with our teachers development group and looking at good in math instructional practices, which really focus on student discourse and getting kids really talking about how to solve problems. And it's been really fun during those math trainings to go and specifically look at Darla or Jamie or Lindsay Mendez's classroom, for example, and seeing the amazing deep discussions kids are having about math. Not only great discussions, but discussions that trail onto the playground where they're continuing to talk about it while they're at recess and whatnot. So we're just really excited for what this will bring. For those of you that have been in the district and had kids in the district, Bridges is a familiar program. They used it prior to our last adoption, and so we're really excited to bring it back because we had some really good results with it prior and believe we can start to leverage those moving forward. And with that, we are asking for approval to move forward with the adoption, independent adoption of the Bridges Mathematic program to begin next year.
Can I ask a quick question? The Bridges student packets, is that enough for the lifetime of it, or do we have like are we allowed to copy it and stuff, or is that gonna be a fee that we have to do every year?
No, the materials that we'll purchase, it will be for the lifetime of the adoption. Typically, that's a 7-year cycle. This time it will only be a 6-year because we're a year behind. But we will have materials that will they're either materials that will come delivered to us every year, or I believe with Bridges, they're a little more or less like loaf frills. And so it's usually accessible black line masters that we would then make copies of.
Okay, sweet.
I can answer that. Everything that is in like the workbooks and stuff, we do have Blackline Masters, and it's super easy to copy.
Okay, so you won't like 2 years later, you won't have
Yeah,
your
if they don't
workbook. you
continue
needed,
to send
okay.
us the workbook, we have everything that.
Wanna make sure you have
in the
everything
workbook,
you
We have the ability to copy, and they have no problem with us copying it.
Okay, perfect.
And with any kind of going off of Crystal's question, with any of the adoptions that we do, the specific packages we get are either to pull us through the lifetime of the adoption, or that there are other means to get those materials. What we do know with consumables, and as a parent that has been in this district during iReady, is that sometimes when those consumables are workbooks, what ends up happening is a lot of waste, because you can't get through the entire workbook, and then they get sent home. And I don't know how many of you guys opened your students' summer backpacks to find like 6 of these workbooks that now you were in charge of figuring out how to recycle. So we like really appreciate when companies are more mindful of like kind of like the environmental footprint of having a lot of waste. And so the Blackline Masters are actually a really great way. Teachers are just copying the things they need versus having these ginormous workbooks that may not fully be used throughout the year.
Ready? Are we doing this one at a time?
I think we're doing one at a time, because these each need a vote, and up and down, so.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the math curriculum materials as presented. Was there a resolution somewhere on there? I didn't see one. Was there a? Did you need to say bridges or anything?
That's presented.
Okay. I'll let it stand then.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second by Heidi. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of adopting a math curriculum for K2 as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. And I'll let you take the next one up, Desiree.
All right. Let me make sure. Okay, make sure I was unmuted. So for our next one, we spent this year with our science adoption, and as you can see, we had a really robust team made up of all the different buildings, and making sure we had good representation from each of the different grade levels and departments. And I really want to extend a big thank you to this team. They put in a lot of effort and work on this, and especially for our middle school and high school teams, that work is really centered on how do we take and simultaneously be piloting pretty complicated pilots while making sure we're hitting all standards and prepping kids for any assessments that are coming up, like state assessments at the 5th and 8th grade and the 11th grade, as well as our elementary team, which is simultaneously rolling out math curriculum this year while piloting. And so we really appreciate all the folks that participated. I will say, as just a note, this year, as is always, we are continually looking for ways to include community members as part of that adoption process. Sometimes the after-school commitment is a lot. So we did a lot of surveying and asking of questions and sending out information, and we'll look to continue to grow those methodologies so that we can have good voice represented in our community as we move forward. The materials that were reviewed across the board for the district at all the different levels really represented some key components of good science instruction. They really focused on hands-on learning and getting kids in that place of being curious scientists. The next generation science standards are really focused on what they call phenomenon-based instruction, which is taking something that kind of sparks you and is curious and like, wow, how did that happen? And then figuring it out through scientific inquiry and study. And so the team not only did a good job of narrowing in on which materials to pilot that really focused on that type of instruction, but then piloting those materials and taking a really critical eye to the work that they were seeing, including times when what we realized is this type of instruction is going to be a shift, not only for our staff, but our students. one just kind of funny anecdote that we heard specifically from the intermediate school, the teachers were having a discussion about the student data. We had received over 600 responses from students to surveys. Every time we finished a pilot, kids had an opportunity to provide feedback and say what they liked or didn't like about the program. And at the intermediate school, the last few years, we've been using a program called Mystery Science, which is really film-based. They watch short films, they have discussion. And we noticed that the kids were saying, like, we'd rather keep doing Mystery Science. And we had a really nice, robust discussion about, yeah, because kids aren't used to having good, robust conversations, and this new curriculum is going to ask them to do that. And so we recognize that there's going to be some instruction that is needed up front, helping kids make the kind of shift into that instruction that really allows kids to be at the center of the learning and engaging hands-on, which was exciting. And I really appreciated the level of thought that we're seeing from our teachers. So after all of that work, our team narrowed it into a few different curriculums. For the primary school, they have decided to go with Amplify Science, which is aligned to their ELA curriculum. One thing around the ELA curriculum that a lot of the kind of background information, it's called the knowledge sections of the ELA curriculum, is around things like social studies and science and principles that help build background knowledge and academic knowledge. And so we're excited to have the science curriculum as kind of a complement to that ELA work that's already happening and seeing some good results. For our intermediate school, they have opted to adopt HMH into Science, which is again aligned to their other curriculums that they have selected previously. Both their ELA and their math curriculum are both in HMH. So we are really familiar with that programming model. Kids are really familiar with the instructional strategies and tools that are embedded within that program. And so we're excited to see how being able to build off of that foundation will lead to good scientific learning. At the middle school, they are investing in Style Science, which is actually it's a program that is based out of Oregon and Australia, and kind of new on the scientific curriculum scene. And we're really excited for these materials. It's well aligned with the AVID frameworks and how AVID structures independent learning and classroom discussions, Socratic seminars, etc. And again, really hands-on based, lab-based science, especially for those middle schoolers as we prepare them to move on to the high school. And then for the high school, what we are building is a set of tools that high school team can use. And that will include adopting STEM scopes for the 9th grade science, and then McGraw-Hill textbooks for the biology, human anatomy, physics, and chemistry. And we're really excited about these selections, mostly because those teachers have often been without actual like solid resources. The incredible team at the high school really does a lot of work on their own to find resources. And so we're glad just to have a good tool that they can lean on and has good resources built into it for students. And in addition, they're going to be working to kind of build out some online digital platforms like through Google Classroom to house all of these kind of scientific resources together. And that concludes my presentation on that.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I move that we approve the material recommendations of Amplify Science for the primary school, HMH into Science for the intermediate school, Style Science for the middle school, and at the high school level, 9th grade, Science STEM scopes and biology, human anatomy, physics, and chemistry by McGraw-Hill.
I'll second that.
A motion, a second, any discussion?
I do have a quick discussion point. Is the primary school really only doing 6 years instead of 7?
I need to have that quote adjusted. I think that is an amplified thing. So we'll either add an additional year to it, or figure out like why Amplify provides a 6-year quote. So right now that's our baseline. Even with it increased to 7 years though, we're well under budgets. So we'll be able to make that leap. Sometimes curriculums have like a 6-year cycle versus a 7-year cycle. And I haven't had a chance to talk with Amplify specifically about why that is for them. But
Any
we
other
have a plan.
discussion? Sorry,
It's okay.
any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion before us, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So that motion carries. Next one up is 6D, ELD curriculum materials adoption.
Awesome. Last one. So I was really honored and grateful that I got to partner with Irma and her ELD team to help kind of take our ELD adoption across the finish line. As you know, this has been a kind of an ongoing process, in part because this adoption cycle kind of hit right as other big things were in flux with our ELD program at the district level, including the development of our SWELL coaching model and some other instructional frameworks that we're working to put into place. And so we've really been deliberate and taking our time with this, but I know that this team as a whole is really ready to finalize this adoption. So the team specifically has been looking at, I'll just call out and say in specific, the ELD selections that the state provided as approved adoption materials for all of our ELD teachers who are really hyper aware and sensitive to the needs of our individual students. We felt that the materials, a lot of them lacked a lot they gave us a lot to be desired. We wished we could get some more out of them. And it was unfortunate. And as we reached out to other districts to say, hey, what did you guys adopt? Are there good examples? Like, point us in the right direction. What we found is that a lot of districts actually decided not to adopt any ELD materials, and they're either contracting to have materials created for them or doing other different things. And so that was good for us to know that like we were not alone in feeling that some of these materials, they were missing some key components. With that, we are doing some independent adoptions, specifically for our primary school and our intermediate school with the hands-on English. Those programs were not on the state adoption list, but have proven to be just really robust programs. Just to add a little bit of background information too, with the state adoption of like what ends up on the list, what we make sure is if we're adopting something that isn't on the list, we make sure that it wasn't on the no list. That's one of our first things that we do. So we wouldn't adopt something where the state specifically said, we reviewed this and it wasn't any good. But there's a lot of reasons why a materials company might not ask to be on the state adoption list. One is that it costs money to have your materials reviewed by the state. And so sometimes smaller companies can't really afford that review process. And so they'll just hold their materials back. Sometimes like in our Bridges scenario, they weren't quite ready for it to be reviewed and they didn't want to get it reviewed and have it rejected because not all the components were done yet. So there's things like that that would make them, they haven't been rejected by the state, they just weren't even reviewed by the state. When that happens for an independent adoption, we then take the lens that the state has provided and we say, would this material have passed through the state lens? And we feel really confident that the materials we were able to find through our really exhaustive searching really meet that letter of and spirit of the adoption process from ODE. Then from there, we really started to narrow in our focus because we are working as a district to try to get as much of our ELD instruction to live at the classroom level and not always be about something on top of core instruction. This allows kids to be more engaged with their peers, to be accessing grade level instruction as much as they can throughout the day. And really be building our curriculum around academic vocabulary and making sure kids have access to language in our core curriculum. That's specifically true for our students who are in that 3 and 4 levels within their English level or their English language development. So from there, the staff really felt that it was more important to focus on our newcomers and our students who are at the 1s and 2s. And with that, they found materials that they felt were just really robust, offered rich academic language, and more than anything, were really student accessible and friendly in that they were interesting and they could really capture kids' attention with current topics or interesting examples or things within pop culture, etc. And so we have selected for both our middle school, high school, and our intermediate school HMH's program that's kind of a combo of 3D English and language launch. And so we're really excited for these materials will be really key in helping our students who kind of fit into that early and intermediate language learners. And like I said, they're really focused on how do we create engaging language experiences for kids so that we can really push forward that language development. And for me, the lens that those teachers took to it was really insightful. And I think the other kind of, I guess, inspiring part of it is the numbers that Bill was sharing earlier in the board meeting, the number of students who have been able to successfully become a proficient on the ELPA, meaning that we will be able to exit them out of the ELD program. So when those teachers are saying, this is what we need, I trust them fully because whatever they're doing right now is seeing some really good results. We're really starting to see us move the ball forward in our language acquisition instruction. And so I'm really excited for the recommendations that the team is putting forward and believe that this will be a good set of resources to help us continue to move our ELD program.
Desiree, can you speak to why the intermediate school has 2 different ones?
Yeah, so right now HMH's 3D English only goes up to 4th and 5th grade. And so we needed something for those early and intermediate students at the 3rd grade level. And so the program that they selected is the same as the program at the primary school. So we'll see some good transition and building on of skills. The other piece is just we want to make sure that they have the right programs in their hands for those early students, because often they are students who've moved into our community as newcomers, and we want to make sure we have good resources for those newcomers. We've had a kind of influx of students moving into our community this year, and making sure we have good resources for them is important. HMH is promising that there will be a kindergarten through 3rd grade version of their hands-on English that will become available next year, but because we haven't seen it, we're not putting that forth at this moment.
Thank you.
I will add this too as just a side note. It's geeky, but I'm really excited that we have HMH kind of going through those grade levels, because there is something about continuity system-wise that really allow us to build on good systems. And often with our adoptions, we aren't always adopting the same materials. And I think when we've done that, it's been for the right reasons. We're meeting a really specific group of kids and their needs. But I do love when we can find alignment. And when all of those different grade levels said, there's alignment here, these are good materials, this is where we want to find alignment, it's like we can really hit some I think milestones with that.
Any other questions for Desiree? Thank you, Desiree. I would entertain a motion. Somebody wants. Staff had it.
I'll make a motion that we approve and adopt the ELD curriculum materials as presented.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of adopting the ELD materials as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. I would just like to say thank you to all of the members of those selection committees. I know that's not a quick process, and I know there's quite a bit of time involved in it, so I would just thank you for the time that went into making sure that those are the best materials that we can possibly get a hold of here at the district, so. All right, 6E, we are up to the point of appointing a new school board member for position number 4.
Forget about you.
As part of this, if we could have Robert, we had one candidate, so if we could have Robert Rodriguez come forward and tell us just a little bit about himself.
Right here.
Yeah, right here. At the desk.
Right, well, my name is Robert Rodriguez and lived in the community here in Butteville for the last 20 years. I was raised in Sandy, Oregon, so a small community. Married my middle school sweetheart. Been married for 30 years. I've been practicing dentist for the last 30 years as well. And so, involved in the local communities, a lot of youth, FCA, Young Life, coaching athletics. And my youngest child, he's 17 now, so he doesn't need me to coach anymore. And so I find that I have some extra time. I have lots of hobbies. I'm a part-time rancher in Eastern Oregon, but I think that and people have been talking to me about becoming part of a board. And so it's just a good opportunity. So I thought I could help out, you know, whatever I can, you know, get some cattle help, teeth help.
We didn't scare you off tonight.
It sounds like I got a lot to learn from just terminology. Yeah. But I'm willing to do it.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to step up and be part of it. Does anybody have any questions? Don't everybody speak at once. If that's all, we can, I would take a motion. Nobody has any questions.
Oh, man. I don't get approved, I'm the only one, so yeah.
No, I'll just say that you had rave reviews.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When I reached out, they were very well intended. So.
Well. So it'll be my last chance to nominate another board member, so, I move that we, approve or select,
Appoint.
thank you, appoint, Robert Rodriguez as our newest school board member.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion?
So excited to have you on board.
All those in favor of appointing Robert Rodriguez to position number 4 ending June 30th, 2025, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Welcome aboard.
Okay, thank you.
Yay.
Step up here, we'll give you an office. Again. I, Robert Rodriguez,
I, Robert Rodriguez,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
and the laws thereof,
the laws thereof,
and the policies of the North Marion School District.
the policies of the North Marion School District.
During my term,
During my term,
I will faithfully and impartially discharge
I will faithfully and impartially discharge
the responsibilities
the responsibilities
of office of school board member to the best of my ability.
of office of school board member to the best of my ability. All right.
That was the hardest part.
It does seem that way sometimes.
Oh, no,
It
it
is.
wasn't.
It's day one, come on.
I was scared, but that's not bad. Alrighty, we're at the end of the agenda items for the regular meeting. I think I want to gavel us down for probably at least 10 minutes. before we start the work session, if everybody's agreeable to that? All right, so let's plan on, it's 7:29, so let's plan on like 7:45 for us to come back in.